The rain fell in relentless sheets against the glass tower of Harrington Global, turning the city lights into trembling streaks of gold and white. Water streamed down the polished marble steps at the entrance, and every few seconds the revolving doors sighed open to release another executive into the night, umbrellas unfolding like dark wings. Emily Carter stood just inside the lobby, careful not to drip onto the spotless floor. She had slipped in behind a group of employees earlier, unnoticed, and now lingered near a tall potted palm as if she belonged there. Her coat, 2 sizes too big, swallowed her thin frame. The sleeves covered half her hands, which she kept clasped together to hide their trembling. Her shoes were damp, the soles nearly worn through. Across the street, visible through the vast glass facade, the red glow of the hospital's sign flickered in the rain. She had promised her mother she would be back soon. "I'll figure something out," she had whispered before leaving the hospital room. But she had spent the entire afternoon knocking on cafe doors, grocery stores, anywhere that might take someone without references or experience. Every place had shaken their heads politely. Now it was nearly 10 at night. The security guard at the lobby desk had already glanced at her twice. She knew she didn't fit the scene. Tailored suits, clicking heels, the faint scent of expensive cologne drifting through the air. She wasn't here to beg. She was just trying to gather the courage to cross the street and tell her mother the truth, that she had failed. Up on the 42nd floor, Daniel Harrington stood alone in a dimly lit boardroom. The skyline stretched behind him, blurred by rain, mirroring the storm inside his thoughts. At 36, Daniel Harrington had everything that business magazines glamorized: wealth, influence, power. Yet the silence in the room felt suffocating. The merger had collapsed hours ago. Months of negotiations undone by a single rival bid. Investors were furious. His phone vibrated every few seconds on the polished table. He ignored it. He walked to the portrait hanging near the door. His father, stern and immovable even in paint. The founder of Harrington Global. The man who had built an empire from nothing and had expected his son to expand it without hesitation. Daniel had done exactly that. So why did it feel like losing something invisible? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Sir," his assistant said carefully from the doorway. "Your car is ready." Daniel glanced at the window. The rain was heavy, almost violent. "Cancel it," he said abruptly. The assistant blinked. "Sir, I'll walk." He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. Moments later, the elevator descended with a smooth hum. When the doors opened into the lobby, Daniel stepped out with his coat draped over his shoulders, tie slightly loosened, a rare sign of disorder. That was when he saw her. She stood near the far wall, trying to appear invisible. But exhaustion has a presence of its own. It clings to the body differently than confidence. Their eyes met for half a second. She looked away immediately. Daniel slowed his stride. Something about her didn't fit the narrative of this building. She wasn't dressed for an interview. She wasn't waiting impatiently for someone. She was simply lingering. The security guard approached her again. "Miss, you can't stay here." "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'll leave." Her voice was steady but thin, like it had been used too much for apologies. "Wait," Daniel heard himself say. Both of them turned toward him. He wasn't entirely sure why he had spoken. Perhaps because he was tired of rooms full of people who wanted contracts and percentages. Perhaps because the loneliness had grown too loud. He studied her face. Pale, too pale, and her eyes. There was something in them that he recognized. Not ambition, not manipulation, desperation. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked, his tone neutral. "No, sir." "Then why are you here?" She hesitated, and for a moment he thought she might lie. "I just needed a warm place for a few minutes," she admitted quietly. "I won't cause trouble." The guard shifted uncomfortably. Daniel slipped his hands into his coat pockets. He should walk away. This wasn't his concern. Instead, he felt an impulsive thought form, reckless and strangely vulnerable. He pulled out his wallet and slid out a thick stack of crisp bills. Emily's breath caught. "Here's $1,000, he said evenly. "Just hold my hand." The lobby went silent. Even Daniel felt absurd the second the words left his mouth. She stared at him, searching his expression for cruelty or mockery. She found neither, only exhaustion that matched her own. "Why?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "Because I need to walk." And I don't want to walk alone. It sounded foolish. It sounded lonely. Her gaze dropped to the money. $1,000. That was more than the hospital had demanded up front for the next round of medication. It was more than she had hoped to find in weeks. She swallowed her pride. Just hold your hand, she clarified softly. That's all. Her fingers were cold as she placed them in his. He felt the tremor immediately. They stepped out into the rain together. The city air was sharp, the wind biting through fabric. Water splashed around their shoes as they walked down the sidewalk in silence. For several seconds, Daniel questioned himself. What was he proving? That he could buy companionship. That loneliness could be solved with cash. Then she stumbled slightly, and her grip tightened, not out of obligation, but instinct. He steadied her. You're freezing, he muttered. I'm fine. You're shaking. She hesitated before answering. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. He stopped walking. What? She looked embarrassed. It's okay. I'm used to it. Why? His voice sharpened. She glanced toward the hospital across the street. My mom's in there. Heart failure. The prescriptions are expensive. The rain blurred the red hospital sign, but he could see it clearly enough. How much do you need? He asked. She laughed faintly. More than this. But this will help. Something in his chest shifted. You agreed to hold a stranger's hand in the rain because you're hungry. He asked quietly. I agreed, she said carefully, because I'm trying to save my mother. There was no self-pity in her tone. Just truth. He looked down at their joined hands. Her fingers were thin, but her grip was firm. Take me to her, he said suddenly. She blinked. Sir, take me to the hospital. You don't have to. I know. Inside the hospital, fluorescent lights replaced the warm glow of the city. The air smelled of antiseptic and quiet despair. Emily led him to a small room at the end of the corridor. Her mother lay in the bed, skin pale against white sheets, dark hair streaked with gray. A monitor beeped steadily beside her. Mom, Emily whispered gently. I'm back. The woman opened her eyes slowly and smiled weakly. You always come back. Daniel stood awkwardly near the door, suddenly unsure of his place. This is... Emily hesitated. Daniel, he supplied. Her mother nodded faintly. Thank you for keeping her safe in this weather. The word struck him unexpectedly. Safe. No one had used that word in relation to him in years. He stepped closer to the bed. What's the total estimate for surgery? He asked quietly. Emily's eyes widened. Sir, you don't. How much? She told him. The number echoed in his mind. It was less than the cost of the art piece hanging in his penthouse hallway. Less than the watch on his wrist. He stepped out into the corridor and made 3 phone calls. By the time he returned, arrangements were already in motion. Emily looked at him as if the world had tilted. You didn't have to, she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. He met her gaze steadily. You didn't have to hold my hand. I did it for the money. No, he said gently. You did it because you still believe people can help. 2 months later, the rain had given way to clear autumn skies. The boardroom at Harrington Global buzzed with cautious anticipation as Daniel stood at the head of the table. We're establishing a medical assistance foundation, he announced. Immediate grants for families denied critical care due to cost. A board member frowned. That's a significant financial diversion. Daniel didn't flinch. So is losing perspective. He thought of that night. Of cold fingers wrapped around his in silent trust. Across town, Emily adjusted the collar of her new blazer as she stepped into the Harrington Global lobby once again. This time, she wasn't hiding near the walls. She walked with purpose. Her mother's surgery had been successful. Recovery was slow, but hopeful. Daniel saw her the moment the elevator doors opened. You look different, he observed. She smiled. I feel different. He nodded toward the city visible through the glass. Walk with me. No payment this time, she teased softly. He shook his head. No. She slipped her hand into his willingly. The warmth between their fingers was no longer born of desperation. As they stepped out into the sunlight, Daniel realized something quietly profound. That night, he had offered $1,000 for a simple gesture. But what he had truly needed couldn't be bought. It had been given freely, by a poor girl who refused to let go.